want to talk about an example of how adaptations are mutations plus natural selection plus time. So in Florida, there's this species of tiny lizards called green anoles, and they primarily inhabit the lower parts of trees and rocks where they can get to their food sources easily. Then, along about 100 years ago from Cuba comes the brown anole. They're bigger, they're more aggressive, they eat the same food, they occupy the same territory. And so obviously a situation is going to occur. The green anole can't fight for their territory, so they decide to move up the trees and just occupy a higher territory as the brown anole takes over and invades their turf. And so what we can see here, right, is that the green anole is going to have this pressure put on it, and there's going to be certain of them that are going to be more capable of living higher up in the tree. So what we can see when we start analyzing these anoles is that some of them have smaller feet, and some of them just naturally are born with larger, stickier feet as a function of the coding on their DNA, just like some humans have big feet and some humans have small feet. Well, the ones with the bigger, stickier feet are going to be better suited for living higher up in the trees. Before, foot size didn't matter, but now all of a sudden, if you've got to climb, big sticky feet are the way to go. And so these green anoles with these bigger, stickier feet are going to be able to climb better, survive better, get more food, be more reproductively successful, stay away from those other anoles, which means they're going to have offspring that have those bigger, stickier feet. And over many, many generations, we're going to see the entire population of the green anoles not have these small feet anymore. We're going to see them have larger, stickier feet. So these adaptations are very small changes to single traits that happen over time due to natural selection from these environmental pressures. So the green anole's mutation was that on its DNA, we had just feet size and stickiness, right? That's coded on the DNA. Some of them had bigger, some of them had smaller, some had stickier, some of them didn't have so sticky. The natural selective pressure is the fact that there is an invasive species. These brown anoles came in and disrupted their normal way of existing. Foot size didn't matter until they had to climb higher up the trees. The last component of time isn't that it takes time for the lizards to grow bigger feet. The time is all about the fact that it takes multiple generations to see this trait show up in the majority of the species. The lizards can't just magically grow bigger, stickier feet just because they want to get away from the brown anoles. Those who have the bigger, stickier feet survive, and those who don't are not going to live as long. They're not going to be as reproductively successful, and so over time, the entire population will shift to have that trait, which is our adaptation. Those big, sticky feet happen mutation plus natural selection plus time. So picking apart a couple of definitions, adaptations take place in a single trait based on a mutation of DNA that makes for either a more favorable or a less favorable trait for a specific environmental condition. And then over time, that becomes the favored trait. Evolution then is a collection of adaptations over an even longer period of time where multiple things in an organism start to adapt to an environment, resulting in organisms with so many genetic differences that they're considered entirely different species. And typically, because their DNA is so misaligned, they're incapable of interbreeding with other species that came from a similar genetic line. For our Mars ecosystem project, we have selected organisms that have a better chance for survival on Mars because the conditions are similar or they have traits that might help them, but the conditions on Mars are going to be different than they are here on Earth, which means that because every organism that we take isn't going to be genetically identical, there's going to be organisms that might have small differences that are going to result in them surviving better on Mars than others. So think about what might those small differences be that would result in enhanced survival. And you're going to talk about what ways adaptations might occur in those organisms over time. We need at least 5 different types of adaptations. Everything can't just change color. So be creative and have fun.